My name is Ines Moreau. I have been the personal secretary and household administrator for the Vale estate for 16 years, which means I have observed a great number of things without being asked my opinion of them. I am sharing my account of this particular matter because it was resolved correctly and because the woman at the center of it deserved to know how it was resolved. Let me explain what I observed. The woman I will call the bookkeeper, Celia Voss, 28, accounts coordinator for 3 adjacent charitable foundations under the Vale portfolio, had been in the position for 14 months when I first noticed something was not right in the correspondence flowing through her department. Celia was, by every professional measure, exactly what her role required: precise, early to every meeting, careful with documentation, accurate in her reporting. She had come to the position through a referral from the foundation's legal counsel, who had worked with her at his previous firm. She asked good questions, learned the systems quickly, and treated the household staff with the kind of uncomplicated courtesy that tells you something about a person's character. After 14 months, I trusted her professional judgment completely. What I noticed was not about Celia. It was about Elliot Marsh, the deputy director of 2 of the 3 foundations, a man who had been in the position for 7 years when Celia arrived. He had a particular quality I had noted when he first joined the portfolio. He managed information, not dishonestly, nothing that would show clearly in an audit, but he made decisions about what reached whom and when, and in what form. In ordinary circumstances, that quality in an administrator is simply efficiency. Over 7 years I had watched it without concern. After Celia arrived, I noticed the pattern change. Elliot began redirecting certain communications. Foundation board correspondence that should have reached Celia's desk as a matter of routing protocol went instead to his own folder with a notation: consolidated review. Voss CC'd on summary. The summaries reached Celia. The original correspondence did not. I documented this for 3 months before I mentioned it to anyone. The reason I document things before mentioning them is that I have been in household administration for 16 years, and I have learned that an impression without documentation is an opinion, and an opinion without documentation is a conversation, and a conversation without documentation has no weight in a formal process. When I finally brought the matter to the head of security, I brought 4 months of parallel routing logs with exact dates and reference numbers. The head of security brought it to the principal. I was not present at that meeting. I was in my office on the 2nd floor when it occurred. What I was told afterward, by the head of security, who is precise, is that when the principal reviewed the routing logs alongside the original board correspondence files, the pattern showed that Elliot Marsh had, over the course of 11 months, systematically excluded Celia from direct knowledge of 2 governance decisions: 1 conflict of interest disclosure and 1 board-level inquiry about her own performance that had been filed by a board member Elliot had a personal connection to. The board member's inquiry was dated 3 months before Celia's annual review. The review, conducted by Elliot, had cited communication gaps in reporting as an area for development. The original board inquiry, which Celia had never received, was the source of the language. I want to be very precise about this. Celia Voss was evaluated negatively by a person who had manufactured the basis for the negative evaluation. She did not know the inquiry existed. She had not been given the opportunity to respond. She had assumed the language in her review reflected her own professional gaps and had, in fact, adjusted her work practices in the months following to address what she believed were legitimate concerns. They were not legitimate concerns. They were fabricated criteria. Elliot Marsh's position was terminated. He was escorted from the building on a Thursday afternoon. The board member he had a personal connection to resigned from the advisory board at the start of the following month. Celia's performance file was corrected. The evaluation language was removed. A new review was conducted by the Foundation's External Audit Council. The finding was that her work over 14 months had been accurate, thorough, and without professional gap. She was offered an elevated position in the portfolio with a direct reporting line to the principal's legal counsel, not through any intermediate layer of management. She accepted. I called her on the Friday after everything had been resolved and told her what I have told you here. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The communication gaps. I spent 4 months changing my process because of the communication gaps." I said, "The gaps were not yours." She said, "I know that now." She went quiet again. Then she said, "Thank you for documenting it. That is what I want you to understand about this case. The documentation was the thing." Elliot Marsh had spent 11 months managing information and trusting that impressions left no evidence. He was wrong. Everything was documented. The routing logs existed. The dates were exact. The reference numbers matched. He believed that a careful person would not notice, or would not keep records, or would not bring what she noticed to someone with the authority to act on it. He was wrong on all three counts. Celia Voss is precise, early to every meeting, and careful with documentation. It is one of the things about her that, in my 16 years of professional observation, I have found most admirable. The communication gaps were not hers. They never were.